Many of my viewers stress that they never want to live and die like their loved ones with dementia. Today we'll walk and talk about the idea of controlling the end of your life and whether or not you can use the death with dignity laws to do so. Let's go. So we can suffer from a lot of different illnesses as we age. Some people suffer from terrible pain. Other people get cancer and struggle with that. Some people have cardiovascular disease and strokes and other issues. There are so many illnesses that we can face. And some people get dementia that eventually robs us of our mind and our body. I generally don't hear people say that they want to live forever. What I do hear people say is they want to live a really great life and then die suddenly in their sleep. So great, dead. Sadly, that's not the experience for most people. My sweet daddy wanted control over how he lived and how he died. And toward the end of his life, he had very little control. I don't believe he still had the capacity to be able to think clearly and assert his will and make the decisions that he wanted. This happens to so many people that we know, where they want certain things, they're very clear about them in their life, and then as the end nears and their body starts to fail, they lose the ability to express those things that are so important to them and to help troubleshoot the decisions that will really make a difference in terms of their experience. Nobody wants this to happen to them. I don't want this to happen to me. We really need to be thinking about what are the options and how do we prepare in a way that gives us choices about the quality of our life and the quality of our death. How you live and how you die is a big topic of conversation in our community. And I get numerous comments of people who have watched their loved ones struggle and suffer through dementia, and their quality of life just decline terribly and slowly over time, and then have a pretty miserable and wretched ending, and how they never want that to happen to them. So here are some comments from our community. Plan a graceful exit. Have a certain point in your decline when you decide this is it, game over. Have everything in order and then, well, you know. I hope to move to a state where I can plan the end of my life in a peaceful environment, not in a warehouse of elderly who cannot take care of themselves. Please allow me an easy way out. Provide it. Pro-death with dignity. So if you've watched a loved one go through it and you know an unpleasant end is likely, how much control can you medically and legally have in the United States? Let's go through one mechanism of that control, death with dignity laws. Also known as physician-assisted dying or aid in dying laws, they are a set of rules that legally allow someone to request a medication from their provider and receive it and use it themselves to be able to end their life and have control over the end of their life, ideally in a way that is peaceful, humane, and dignified. So where is this legal? I live in Oregon, and it's one of the first states that passed a death with dignity law, but there are 10 other states or territories where this is legal. They include California, Colorado, the District of Columbia, Hawaii, Maine, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, Vermont, and Washington. Since I live in Oregon and I'm most familiar with those laws, I'll be talking about the specifics of the Oregon law, but much of the information is similar in different states. So here's a question that comes up. Can anyone use this? Anyone who wants to hasten their death, is it available to them? The simple answer is no. To participate, a person has to be 18 years or older, so by definition, children and adolescents are ruled out. The person has to be able to communicate independently their desire to perform this act. It can't be somebody else speaking on their behalf, so they have to have the capacity to do that. And they have to be diagnosed with a terminal illness with the idea that they have 6 months or less to live. In most situations, you have to be a resident of the state or the territory in order to be able to utilize this law. But starting in 2022, Oregon passed an addendum that said you do not have to be a resident, and this is no longer being enforced. So here's another important point. What's the process? How does one go about doing this? Can I just ask my doctor for a medication and I have it the next day? The answer again is no. So there's a pretty lengthy process in order to be able to use this mechanism. One part of the process is that you have to make 2 separate verbal requests to your provider, and they have to be separated by 15 days, theoretically, to give you enough time to think about it. You also have to make a request in writing, and that request in writing has to be witnessed by 2 other people, one of whom cannot be related to you. The physician you're working with has to determine that you qualify with a diagnosis that's terminal and that they believe you have 6 months or less to live. They also have to determine that you have the capacity to be able to make this decision for yourself and request the medication. If there's any concern that you might be suffering from something like depression or some other psychiatric problem that would be influencing how you're thinking about this, they are required to refer you for a psychological evaluation. The attending physician has to inform you that there are other alternatives available, like comfort care, hospice care, and pain control. The physician also must recommend that you talk to your family about your decision and inform them, but they are not required to enforce this. So another good question is, well, once I ask for this type of intervention, if I want the medications or I get the medications, is that it? I get them and that has to be what I do? And the answer again is no. You get to change your mind. You can change your mind anytime you want to, and the physician is required to ask you if you've changed your mind throughout the process. So the Oregon law was enacted in 1997. It's been over 25 years since this law went into effect. So does that mean that thousands upon thousands of people have died from it? No, it's still relatively rare that people utilize this mechanism. In that entire span of time, less than 4,000 people have received medication to end their life, and fewer than 2,500 people have actually ended up using it. In 2022, in Oregon, fewer than 450 people got a prescription, and a little over half of them ended up using it. Around 20% got the prescription and never ended up using it at all, but died from other causes later on. So what kind of diagnoses qualify to get the medication? For most people, the diagnosis that leads them in this direction and becomes ultimately approved is cancer, heart disease, and neurological diseases. So what does it look like when people use the medication? How long does it take for them to die? Although the time varies in terms of how long it takes to go into effect, most people die in less than an hour. And why do people take this medication? What are their concerns? Why do they want to have that end-of-life control? The 3 things that people cite as the reasons they choose to get the medication in the first place is a decreased ability to do the things they truly enjoy in life. They also cite a loss of autonomy and a loss of dignity. So the ultimate question for our community is, can I use this when I'm diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or some other kind of dementia? And again, the answer is no. For most people, when they receive a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or other type of dementia, there's no certainty that they're going to die within 6 months. When they do get to the point where someone is likely to die within 6 months, virtually no one retains the capacity to be able to ask for the medication and use it independently. By definition, people with dementia are excluded from using this process. So until the medical and legal systems in the United States decide that the person who we are today, who has capacity and logical thinking, has complete control over the person we are in the future, who doesn't have capacity, until that is decided, people with dementia are excluded from having control in this manner. Given the questions and comments and concern that I see in my practice and within our community, this is a wonderful topic for us to be able to discuss. Please share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below so we can discuss them, we can be enriched in terms of how we think about all of this, and we can find more options for that quality of life and quality of death that we all want. Thanks again for coming along on this walk to talk about these really important things. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. Bye.